Hey class, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about matter, chemistry, and the environment. Matter is defined as all material in the universe, whether it be a liquid, a solid, or a gas. The study of matter and their interactions is called chemistry. The building blocks for matter are elements. Elements, such as oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, cannot be broken down into smaller parts. Elements make up matter. Elements themselves are made of atoms. Atoms are teeny tiny, and they include neutrons, protons, and electrons. Some elements have two or more or several atoms. Like nitrogen is N2, which means there's two nitrogen atoms together that create the element. Same with oxygen. Oxygen is O2. Two oxygen atoms together create the element. So you can break apart these atoms from an element, but they won't be stable. So you can separate an oxygen from an oxygen and have two atoms, but they won't be stable. So it's not an element. An element is the most simple form of matter. So what are molecules? Molecules are two or more elements together, and they're held together by a sharing of the electrons from their atoms. It's a lot to know, but bear with me. So water is a molecule because it is two hydrogens bound to one oxygen, H2O. H2, two hydrogen, O, one oxygen. Some molecules are huge, and we call those macromolecules. Macro means big, such as carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a macromolecule, and so is DNA and proteins. We'll talk a little bit about those later. All this is in your book. I'm just walking you through it. Okay, so we're skipping through some material in the chapter now, and all you need to know about pH is that bases are closer to 14, acids are closer to 1, and fresh water is right in the middle at pH of 7. That's all you really need to know. And maybe that the extremes will burn you. A strong acid will burn through your skin. A small base will burn through your skin. So closer you are to 7, better off you are, unless you're working with acids and bases. So what are hydrocarbons? Okay, now we're touching on organic chemistry, which you'll probably learn in another class. Hydrocarbon. Hydrogen and carbon. That's basically all a hydrocarbon is. Lots of hydrogen and carbon. So hydrocarbons are fossil fuels. They include fossil fuels. A simple hydrocarbon is methane, which is CH4, one carbon, four hydrogens. And a more complex hydrocarbon is propane, which is C3H8. You don't need to know that, but in this case, you'd have 3 carbons to 8 hydrogen atoms, and so on. So hydrocarbons as fossil fuels is actually the sun's energy stored into molecules. Well, the sun's energy stored in molecules. How does that happen? Well, fossil fuels, which are hydrocarbons, are plant and animal matter that lived a long time ago and captured the energy of the sun in molecules, and then it was buried, like from an asteroid or at the bottom of the ocean. So the sun provided the energy for those things to live, and when they died, the energy in the molecules was preserved. And when we pull them out of the ground and use them as gasoline, we're releasing that energy for our uses. We also get our human energy from the sun. How does that happen? Well, carbohydrates, fats, sugars, proteins are all the sun's energy stored in molecules. So when we eat them, we're getting the sun's energy. Let's see, where are we? So if you look at figure 2.11 for a simple chemical equation, it will show sugar plus oxygen that you breathe in will result in carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, and water and heat. So the release of energy creates heat, and you use the energy to survive. What is energy anyways? As definition, energy is a capacity to change the position, physical composition, or temperature of matter. What? Let's think of it this way. Energy is stored in carbohydrates. If I eat the carbohydrates, then the stored energy is released and I use it to maintain my body, homeostasis, or to grow, or to keep warm. And there's two basic types of energy, potential energy and kinetic energy. Potential energy has the potential to provide energy, which means it's stored energy. Kinetic energy, on the other hand, is the energy of movement. A few of you are majoring in kinesiology, which is the study of movement, body movement, the study of kinetic energy. Let's look at potential and kinetic energy like water stored behind a dam. The water stored is potential energy, it has the potential to do work. Whereas the energy flowing out of a dam into a river is kinetic energy, the energy of movement. So where did all that energy come from? It came from the sun. The sun evaporated water at the ocean, made it into clouds. Clouds came over and either rained or snowed on the mountains, and the dam held back the energy, making it potential behind the dam. Now we use energy stored in water from the sun to produce electricity in a hydroelectric plant at the base of a dam. It's really interesting. All these things come back to the sun. So the book also talks about a skater, and it shows you a picture. So the skater will eat potential energy like carbohydrates and bread, and they store it in molecules in their body like fat. Then the skater releases that energy and now has kinetic energy that is in motion. Now let's think about it. Would it take energy to stop the kinetic energy of that skater's motion? The answer is yes. Try to stop a skater who's skating downhill. It takes energy to counteract energy and forces. So one more thing, when you do exercise, you get warm, don't you? That's a byproduct of using the potential energy. The book throws a nearly unrelated but also important tidbit on another macromolecule, DNA. You've all heard of it. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. By and large, it is the genetic material passed from parents to offspring to give them the traits that they will have in the next generation. It's true for trees, grasses, worms, plants, dogs, humans, bacteria. For the most part, deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, is the genetic material. Some organisms use RNA, ribonucleic acid, but we won't get into that. It's mostly like weird bacteria and viruses. Whoa, that's enough for this video. We'll soon see how all this makes sense and makes up ecosystems. So please proceed to the next video and we'll talk a little bit more about these topics and try to wrap it up.